Continuing in this video with the calculation of cost of equity share capital. So far you have learned the calculation of cost of debt, cost of preference. Now you are learning cost of equity and finally cost of retained earnings. What is cost of equity share capital? What do you pay for equity shareholders? Usually it is the dividend. So dividend what you are paying to the equity shareholders for their investment, that is the cost involved in raising the funds from equity shareholders. Now under this basically you have four methods. Dividend yield method, or it is your dividend divided by price ratio method, dividend yield method or dividend price ratio method. Second one is dividend yield plus growth in dividend method. Third one is earnings yield method, and the last one you have is the realized yield method. In case of dividend yield, whatever return you have given to the company, dividend divided by the net proceeds, or as you know, whenever dividends are distributed to the shareholders, investors are very happy and it shares are traded at a higher price in the market. So therefore even market price per share also can be taken to calculate the cost of equity share capital. You might ask me, ma'am, why didn't we take market price for debt or preference? Debt or preference is not traded on the stock exchange. Only equity shares have secondary market as they are listed on the stock exchanges, and hence only in this case we can take D divided by NP. So whatever dividends they have received divided by the net proceeds or the market price per share will tell you the cost of equity share capital under this first method. Second method you have is the dividend yield plus growth in dividend method. Dividend yield plus growth in dividend rate, what is this? Let's assume last year you received dividend of 10 and next year you are expecting dividend of 11, and other next year you may expect much higher amount. So that means dividend amount is not constant, instead it is changing every time and there is growth in that. So if dividends are growing at constant rate, please look at the assumption. If dividends are growing at constant rate, maybe 10% or 5% every year continuously, then we can follow the second method, dividend yield plus growth method. We assume that dividend payout ratio remains constant and there is constant growth rate in case of dividend payment, which is taken into account, which is D1 divided by NP plus growth rate. D1 is the dividend expected at the end of year 1. NP is the net proceeds, G is the growth rate. D1 can also be written as D0 into 1 plus G. This is how we calculate cost of equity in the second case. In the third case, earning yield method, here we are not taking the dividends, instead it is the earnings of the company. What is earnings for equity shareholder? It is the earning per share, which is the last element you calculate in case of your EBIT EPS analysis. So earnings per share divided by market price per share, or it is earnings per share divided by net proceeds. So in case of your earnings yield method, we assume that EPS remains constant and DPO is 100%. There are no retained earnings. It means that we are assuming whatever the company earns in the form of EPS. See, I will show you. EBIT less interest will be your EBT, less tax is your EAT, less preference dividend will tell you what is the earnings available to equity shareholders divided by number of equity shares. This is your EPS. From this, any company will decide how much should be distributed to shareholders, how much should be retained as retained earnings. But in the earnings yield method, we are taking here directly earnings, assuming that dividend payout ratio is 100%. Nothing but whatever earnings you have got here, you are distributing